Yeah, good evening everyone. Welcome to the Reckleman Street Scout Hall, the first Scouts of Castlemaine in Central Victoria for the BAREC General Meeting of the 18th of March 2022. Tonight, Tony, VK3KKP, will be reviewing the first 5 years of Mills on the Air. His presentation will run for 30 minutes or possibly a little more than that. We'll have a short break, followed by our club announcements and our annual awards for 21-22. And for the benefit of our online audience, we will get straight into it and we'll hand over to Tony. So Tony, VK3KKP.
Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome. And we have guests from Smeaton who started all this and they'll be explaining it later. I'm Tony, VK3KKP, and these club meetings are held in Castlemaine once every 3 months because we have such a lot of BAREC members from this area and friends who attend these meetings when they come down here. Now, we're not just a radio club. We're not just interested in radio, we're interested in very diverse subjects connected with electronics and radio. For instance, this slide shows you that one of our special interest groups is concentrating on microprocessors. And I'm in several groups. I'm hosting a couple of groups and I'm a member of several other groups. So that's what we do. We're not just radio enthusiasts, but we cover a whole spectrum of electronics. And thanks to all the members and friends who've travelled down from Bendigo and further afield, in fact. And welcome to the viewers on YouTube, who unfortunately don't live in Castlemaine, so they have to come in via the internet. What I'm going to be talking about this evening, how the event got started 25 years ago or more in Europe and the UK, how and why the Mill scheme happened in Australia, and of course, how you can get involved in this year's event coming up soon. The date will be up later, and how your club or your organisation can get involved. Mills of the Air started with the Bendigo Amateur Radio Society in the UK, and that was 25 years ago. I'm not going to read out the whole story, but on this particular web page that you'll find on ddars.net, Bendigo Amateur Radio Society.net, you can see the story of the Mills, and there's a very nice explanation of how that all started. These are examples of the Mills activities that happened in the UK prior to us getting involved. People driving up to Mills will explain more later about how it happens. This is the Salford Brass Mills. Here's a lovely picture of one of these windmills. And notice the areas are roped off with red plastic to keep the public away from the antennas and the radio shack, but this site doesn't look as though it's very much open to the public. The ones we've been doing here in Australia are open to the public, and we get a very nice response. Holland is another great place for windmills, of course, and they are pretty big in this event. Now you can see why the National Trust and the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings are interested in these events, because they can combine historical and heritage activities along with what some consider our hobby is. Our activity is a heritage activity, but we've actually extended it into the present time, and I'll be demonstrating later how we're actually looking into the future. This was from one of the mills in 2018. One of the events We started in 2017 at the Smeaton Anderson's Mill, but this is the next event, and you can see down the bottom all these different people were exhibiting during that day, and so were we, amateur radio and more, it says at the bottom. And I hear from Alan and Cheryl that that's one of the most people are most interested in that side of things when they come to the Mills Day, which I found surprising, but I'm delighted. We've got a bit of a montage. The Quendale Mill people from the Shetland Islands were instrumental in assisting Alan and Cheryl set up the scheme here. And this is one of their earlier expeditions to the Quendale watermill. And you can see the amateur radio station set up within the mill itself. As I said, Mills on the Air opened in Australia in 2017 with the linking up of Alan and Cheryl and Peter, VK3CC, from the Central Goldfields Amateur Radio Group, at the suggestion of Tony from Quendale Mill, Shetland, and his call sign, Golf Mike Zero, Golf Mike Lima. And hopefully they'll be watching this. I've got reliably informed that there are several UK stations going to be watching us on their Friday morning, which is a fairly good time for them to catch up with us. I'll let Alan and Cheryl tell you the rest in a taped interview.
So we moved up from Melbourne about 28 years ago, and we bought a cottage that overlooks Anderson's Mill. And we got to know the Anderson ladies, who were the descendants of the original Anderson brothers, who'd started the mill in 1862. And they really wanted something to be done with the mill because they'd sold it to the government and nothing much had happened. There had been a festival, but it didn't raise money or real awareness of Anderson's Mill. So after quite a few years of talking with them and wondering what we could do, after they passed on, we were talking to Paul, who was a park ranger, who was quite depressed about what was happening down there at the mill. And the three of us were talking about, well, maybe we could restart a festival and get the mill known outside of Smeaton. It is a 5-storey bluestone mill, which is pretty much intact. It's still got the stables, the granaries. Very few mills left have those all together in the one place. And it's situated in a beautiful position too. So after we got onto the National Trust, asked them if they would like to be involved. They allowed us to use their National Trust name in our title of our event, and that's how it all started. That's how we actually started the first year, and then we were going really strongly until COVID. Well, the radio people, as Alan said, was because we were wondering what else we could do. So we contacted the mills in Shetland, just looked it up online and thought, well, there's a mill, we'll see what they do. And it was them who told us about the radio group. So we rang, it was Peter Rafferty. I don't know his number, but we are not radio people. I have to put that out right now. We didn't know anything about it at all. But Peter Rafferty was really enthusiastic, and he really got involved in that, and it's what really started our event. Because of Peter and the radio group, we were then able to build on it, and it really was very successful. And then from that first event, then BAREC became involved, and it became bigger and bigger and bigger. And the last event, the radio group was really, really good. They were doing some fabulous things down there, and it became very, very popular with the attendance. So we would really like to continue with that. So if we continue on with our event next year, which we have every intention of doing.
After many years overlooking Anderson's Mill in Smeaton, we had begun working with Parks Victoria to look at ways in which we could promote an awareness of the heritage of the mill. And we started with the idea of bringing people together at the mill, and we discovered that in the UK, on the second weekend in May, they had a UK Mills weekend where all over the UK they opened up mills. So we decided to get in contact with one of the mills, which was Quindale in Shetland, and they told us about the Mills on the Air event, where different mills across the UK linked up through their wireless programs. So we got on to the BAREC group, and we asked them if they would begin to work with us. Now, this was in 2016, in April, and it took us another year to get up to our first event, which was held in 2017. To do that, we actually organised with Parks Victoria, with the Clunes Neighbourhood House, with the Hepburn Shire, and with a whole range of different groups. And ultimately we brought together a whole series of different artistic groups with Regional Arts Victoria supporting us in order to set up a 2-day festival where over a period of time thousands of people attended the mill. And in that process, every year the radio group has set up on the site and communicated across to the UK, to other areas of the world, and now we've been setting it up so that they can communicate all over Australia to other mills. We had the support of the National Trust, who continued to promote us as a part of their festival, and by the second year we'd got in contact with BAREC, and they then have been continuing on ever since to take over the weekend and broadcast to other mills in Australia.
Well, there are many, many different ways of finding mills in your area. You can have a look at your local historical societies. You can go to any of the websites online. You can go to your a working mill and ask them if you can activate their site. Every country town right through Australia has a mill, either a flour mill, a wood mill, any of those things. Some of them are derelict, but you could still activate that site. There are some really fascinating historical mills that go way back before 1800 too, in different parts of, say, New South Wales, Tasmania and other areas. And also then, if you were able to, if you knew New Zealand or anywhere else where you can contact those radio groups, they could then also look at, see what they've got. And then that could become bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden you're activating mills right across Australia and anywhere else that you are able to do that. So if you know of a mill or know people who support a mill in your area, you could contact the local amateur radio group and see if they will activate those sites.
Okay, that's the story of how it all started. This image, by the way, is the mill with Mount Alexander putting on an art display. They've employed Jim Code from Castlemaine, who's a projection artist. He got the local kids in the Smeaton area to design the projection show, and that occurred on every night. I think that was 2018, no, 2019, 18, yeah. Okay. Right, well, as they said, I was contacted by Peter. He rang around and said, does anybody want to join their group, with this first activation of a mill? And I volunteered, and I already knew something about the scheme because it was very popular in the UK, where I lived before coming here in 1981, and in Europe, as I pointed out, in Holland especially. I quickly realised that the radio side of things had been sorted out. They'd got it all organised, and even the catering had been done. And so I thought, well, I can do publicity. So I decided to set up, as you can see there, a bit of a display. I had my van there where I slept in it over the weekend. And well, as I said, we all stayed in our vans or inside the building. It was a sort of camp out. There is a magazine, the WIA Amateur Radio Magazine, and we got a lovely story about that particular event in it. There's Tony VK3AJW and Mick VK3GGG on the front there, and a very nice picture by Craig, VK3KLI. In it is the story of our weekend there. And I'll just tell you one of the stories. When we were kind of huddled around the one bar fire in there in the middle of the evening, somebody knocked on the door, and it was a farmer, 80-year-old farmer locally, who just finished work on a Saturday at 10 o'clock at night, came in and said, "What are you doing?" You know, and we described what we were doing, and he said, "Well, I've lived here all my life." And he told us a bit about the history of the mill. He remembers the time when they stopped using the water wheel and they put the electricity in and electric motors, and the owners wanted to actually get rid of the water wheel, and they thought the best way of doing that was to blow it up with explosives. And so, well, this freaked the local people out completely, and they campaigned against it, and in the end they were prevented from doing that. So the wheel actually is still there, and it still works. Fantastic. A bit of luck there. But yes, we met all sorts of people there, other radio clubs, the local people, people from all over who were interested in the mill and some of the things they did. There was a sock making machine from the Second World War there in action, and things like that. And yeah, we did actually encounter a lot of people who were very interested, and some of them have gone on to be connected with the club here. There's the site from the air, and the building on the bottom right-hand corner. You can see my van there at the entrance gate. All the other people who participated could park inside there, and we set up our display in what was the stables. My memory gets a bit jumbled about which year was which in this. I've done 5 years in a row there, and it all changed, of course, in 2021, when the public were not allowed to visit the mill. So we held a private event that complied with the COVID regulations at the time. I've got to explain another little story about our first time at the mill. Because unfortunately, although we looked as though we were very prepared, nobody brought a tin opener. Now, this is a thing that I put up on Facebook a few days earlier. I was very proud to find I'd bought a Frey Ventos pie, which I remembered from when I was a kid. And it's in a can. Okay, so what I did, I went out to cook my tea. I couldn't find any utensils, so I hammered a hole in the lid and sucked most of it out, cold. And I never told anybody about this. Because we're always supposed to be prepared as radio amateurs, aren't we?
QCQ, this is BK3 Charlie Mike Zulu portable at Anderson's Mill, listening for any calls. That's a rough description of the mill. It's quite an impressive looking building there. Anyway, hand back to you. BK7 LG, this is BK3 Charlie Mike Zulu portable. BK7 at Lima Golf. This is BK3 Charlie Mike 2 portable at Anderson's Mill. Operator name this way is David. That way, this is BK3 CMZ portable.
Well, that was early on. Now, this is the 2021 event. We more or less stayed outside. We weren't actually in the Bluestone building, but and we had some members of the public who were allowed to have a look individually around the building. So anyway, we decided to go ahead and have our radio event, and the same thing is happening this year. So in a few months, we are going to have a radio event with only a few visitors permitted. And we're going to video it again and make another video. Craig made that video, and you can see him in the right-hand corner there, taking shots. And we'll show you that video in a second. We got a special call sign, VI3 Mills, MILLS, which we've got again this year, and we're already publicising it. You can see we had a display there as well. That was very popular, and there are a few of those posters around the wall here, and there's some radio equipment at the back of the room there to have a look at as well, the sort of equipment we would use in that event. All right. I thought there was a page missing. You may be wondering what these two activities have in common, heritage and radio. Well, not much really on the face of it. But then think WWFF, that's the World of, anybody know what it stands for? I keep forgetting. Thank you. Worldwide Flora and Flora. Lighthouses, I mean, connection is tenuous. SOTA, well, that's slightly, because if you're up hills, you can talk further on VHF, of course. But no, the thing that connects them is that we promote each other. It's a cross-promotion, really. And it's grown up to be very popular. I'm going to show video from last year now. Well, it started 25 years ago in Denby Dale in the UK. I think they just wanted to promote their local mill, and National Trust in England, and there's a Society for Protection of Old Buildings, and so they sort of combined forces, and over the years they've gradually grown so that radio clubs will activate their local mills just by turning up in a caravan or a car. Or in our case, as we did with this mill, we camped here.
Right to go. This one? Righto. Okay, now, just hang on to that.
around, we can do excellent Zoom. And we've decided that we're going to continue to do that. Since 2017, I got asked to come along and help the Central Goldfields group, amateur radio group, up here from Maryborough. And since then, BAREC has taken it over, Bendigo Amateur Radio and Electronics Club. And we've done it every year since then.
Yeah, cheers, man.
And it coincides with the National Trust weekend as well. So, we usually get a lot of people having a look around the mill at the same time. And we have actually attracted several amateurs to the hobby through this.
BI3MILLS, over.
Yeah, one of it's the facility line and around that area. I'm not sure whether we've been to Sweden or not. We travelled with a caravan around that place.
Well, this year we've gone nuts on Facebook, and it's been quite an eye-opener. Just now I've been talking to people on the air who've said that they first discovered it on Facebook. There's now a Facebook group, Mills on the Air Australia, and there's also a website produced by the people, Alan and Cheryl here, at this mill, Anderson's Mill, where people can add stuff about their own mills and their own radio activations.
CQ, this is VI3MILLS for Mills on the Air weekend. We're located at Smeaton in central Victoria, listening for any stations.
BAREC has produced an electronic QSL card that's available on application, and it seems like everybody I've talked to has been interested in applying for one.
Thanks for the contact. Anyway there, Mark, hand it back to you. VK7NE, this is Victor India 3 MILLS.
Victor India 3 MILLS. The Mills on the Air, this is VK7ME, yes, no worries there, David, all right, all the best.
We've got a special call sign this weekend, VI3 Mills, and that's a full call sign, so any of our members can operate it.
VK3 FGAP, good signal through the node there in Castlemaine here to VI3 Mills, Anderson's Mills Smeaton for Mills on the Air weekend. It's great that you can come through to the node.
Normally, we would have a full demonstration of a radio station, plus a lot of posters, other material, an exhibition of old radios, that sort of thing, as our part of the display. But the mill would be also, as I said, doing a weekend of Heritage Weekend, and they have all sorts of heritage industries on display. Okay, VK2 Hotel Lima, VI3 Mills. My name is Tony. Over.
What's your location, Tony? Over.
It's Smeaton, Victor India 3, Mike India Lima Lima Sierra, CQ CQ CQ, VI3 Mills listening.
VI3 Mills, VK5 KLV. What was your thing on your signal on that? I watched it on
Well, as I said, you may be wondering what the connection is, but every time amateur radio enthusiast takes their equipment away from their radio room and sets it up in a novel environment, they're actually doing an exercise in emergency preparedness. Here's just one Sunday afternoon some time ago where we all went up Mount Tarrangower here locally in the Malden district, and we had 8 vehicles there, all equipped with radio, all interfering with each other, and you know, we had a nice day out on the top of that mountain. And that's what we're prepared to do. You know, we'll be able to set up our equipment anywhere, work off batteries. Here is a story that's recently been put onto the Facebook page of the ABC. And this woman did a fantastic job in the floods. Sally Flannery communicated the needs of dozens of her neighbours who were trapped on roofs and what have you. She communicated and she got through to Facebook, where she had a spreadsheet where she put people's predicament, and you know, people then responded, local volunteers. Now, this was just terrific, and there were lots of other people who did very similar things. Just lucky that she was able to have a phone coverage, because imagine if she didn't have the phone coverage, all that's not relevant. Okay, and there's a lot of people up in that area that didn't have phone coverage, and so that's what we train for. We need to be able to help those sort of people. And in fact, just today, I've seen a story where the ABC has reported on amateur radio. Unfortunately, it's mostly about the fact that a lot of amateur radio people had all their equipment destroyed by the floods, and that Albury Radio Society is actually doing a collection to try and equip these people back to full operation. But they did mention, this is the first time I've seen an ABC article mention the fact that radio is the way to go in these situations. For the first few days, that's the only thing that will work in that area. So it's up to us to be prepared. And I think that's what we do really, subconsciously, as I said, when we join these other activities and we go out and practice. One of the things we've done in here in Castlemaine is race the train. We've been on the train, and we've had cyclists with radios following the cycle track, and some of the people here. This is a newspaper article that I think I've got on the wall somewhere there. Some of the scouts joined in. They've been trained by us to get their license as well. So it had several different success stories in there. And there's me and Ross on the station with a public display. And again, that's from the local newspaper. One of the things I'm always banging on about to my colleagues is that every time we set up in a public place or in an event, it's a photo opportunity which should be used to promote our activities to the wider public. In other words, if it doesn't appear in a local newspaper, it didn't happen. So I'm hoping that, you know, this story is equivalent. It'll go out on YouTube, and we'll have people watching it like they've been watching our other stories. I have heard from a few clubs in the UK that they have been watching our videos of the Mills events, and they're very interested in it. And in fact, one person has been saying they've been watching our tutorials that we've got online, and saying that they find them fascinating as well. So don't think that we don't get out. We're getting out all over the world now with our YouTube and Facebook presence. This slide shows that Ross, who's here tonight, and Greg set up last year in the mill in Castlemaine. So we were able to talk to them and exchange the special call sign as well. And the people at the mill, which has been converted from a carpet mill, or a woolen mill really in the first place, they've converted it into a kind of shopping precinct, and with arts and crafts and food available there. But the owners said that they were really pleased that they'd set up. It was a nice idea. Here are a couple of mills that were activated by the Maryborough group. that we were talking about earlier, who started this whole scheme in Australia. And so there's the, well, I haven't got the names of the mills now. I can't read that. Maryborough knitting mills, yes. And the other one's the flour mill, is it? Yes. Okay, and they're still there, which is terrific. At this point, I'd like to mention the work of Paul, VK5PAS. He's very keen on activating parks, SOTA, and publicising it. He's got a wonderful website. He activated this mill in 2017, the same time as we did, with the Smeaton mill, the Anderson's mill. And as I said, his website is full of information about these sort of things, so go there. vk5pas.org, I think it is, but here we are, it's on the slide. Don't forget, these slides will be available to watch on YouTube again, so any information that we've printed up there will be available. So our point is that we want to increase participation in the Mill on the Air event all over the world, but especially Australia and New Zealand. However, last year, I was able to talk to Paul in Antarctica, VK0 Papa Delta, at Casey Base, with the special event call sign, VI3MILS, LLS. And I've got an extract from QRZ.com here, where it says that he's confirmed the contact with the Bendigo Amateur Radio and Electronics Club. And then I also had a chat with him on my own call sign, just to make sure I was there too. I was disappointed to discover that there were no mills in Antarctica. But you discovered, Graham, didn't you, that there's a mills range or something like that? Or?
Mill Island, I think.
Mill Island, so it's close enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul's back in Australia now. Okay, this is what you should do. This is off the Mills on the Air website. This is all the information you need to supply them. And again, I won't go through it because you'll be able to look it up again in the end. And there's the certificate that we haven't applied for. We should get some backdated certificates from them. Apparently they do that. So the guys in Denby Dale. We need to alert other members of other activities such as SOTA and WWFF so that they're out on the same day that we are, because they want to get points and contacts the same way as we do. So it would be great if we could encourage that to happen. And so we're putting on lots of Facebook information to that effect. We've got a couple of months to go, so we'll build up at the end. And there's the actual information about the dates of that event. And we'll be operating on the Sunday, which is, of course, a Saturday in more western parts of the world, which will be the peak day. So we might actually have a chance at contacting a station in Europe if conditions are improving at the rate they're doing. So is there any questions? Are there any questions, should I say?
No question, just a statement. The Mills call sign is available Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday.
Oh, right. Thanks, Mike. Yes. Well, members will be using the call sign from various locations to give it a good outing, as well as at the event. So that's available for 4 days for anyone in the world who wants to have a contact with us.
QRZ.com.
Oh, a QRZ.com page as well is available. So thank you all for listening, and good night.